Hola, es un gusto para mí estar con ustedes de nuevo. Les traigo un video que les va a ayudar muchísimo a mejorar la pronunciación. Este ejercicio para mí es de lo mejor que hay si quiero de verdad aprender a hablar inglés. Lo he hecho ya en un video anterior, pero acá lo traigo más explicado, con más detalles, que estoy seguro que te va a servir mucho. Quédate hasta el final del video para que lo empieces a implementar desde hoy mismo y veas la diferencia, cómo vas a mejorar en tu fluidez. Garantizado. Quédate acá. Con esta simple frase tengo bastante de lo que necesito para poder agarrar fluidez. ¿Vives con tus hermanos? Lo que voy a hacer con esta frase para poder llegar a tener buena fluidez es exprimirla al máximo. ¿Cómo? ¿Vives con tus hermanos? En español generalizamos hombres y mujeres con la palabra hermanos, pero en inglés es específico. Lo mismo pasa para padres. ¿Vives con tus padres? En inglés la palabra es parents, no puedo decir fathers. Igual acá no puedo decir brothers. Si es hombre y mujer, debería ser hermano y hermana. Entonces, frases así que sean confusas en el idioma las voy a repasar con todas las personas, todos los tiempos, modo de pregunta, modo de negación. Así es como lo voy a hacer. Empiezo con yo vivo con mis hermanos. I live with my brother and sister. You live with your brother and sister. He lives with his brother and sister. She lives with her brother and sister. They live with their brother and their sister. We live with our brother and our sister, or we live with our brother and sister. Negation. I don't live with my brother and sister. You don't live with your brother and sister. He doesn't live with his brother and sister. She doesn't live with her brother and sister. They don't live with their brother and sister. We don't live with our brother and sister. Question. Do I live with my brother and sister? Y voy a responder en todas las formas posibles. Yes, you do. You live with your brother and sister. Ahora, negativa corta y negativa larga. Antes había hecho la afirmativa corta y la afirmativa larga. Entonces, do I live with my brother and sister? Yes, you do. You live with your brother and sister. No, you don't. You don't live with your brother and sister. Do you live with your brother and sister? Yes, I do. I live with my brother and sister. No, I don't. I don't live with my brother and sister. Does he live with his brother and sister? Yes, he does. He lives with his brother and sister. No, he doesn't. He doesn't live with his brother and sister. Does she live with her brother and sister? Yes, he does. No, sorry. Yes, she does. She lives with her brother and sister. No, she doesn't. She doesn't live with her brother and sister. Do we live with our brother and sister? Yes, you do. You live with your brother and sister. No, you don't. You don't live with your brother and sister. Do they live with their brother and sister? Yes, they do. They live with their brother and sister. No, they don't. They don't live with their brother and sister. ¿Y con eso terminaría todo? No. Ahora continúo con los demás tiempos. Estoy viviendo con mi hermano y mi hermana. Próximo reto de inglés, mayo 17, 30 días para que aprendas como nunca antes has aprendido. Y si quieres adquirir el curso que tú puedes empezar en cualquier momento a tu propio ritmo, también lo puedes hacer. La información de todo eso queda en la descripción. I'm living with my brother and sister. You're living with your brother and sister. He's living with his brother and sister. She's living with her brother and sister. They're living with their brother and sister. We're living with our brother and sister. Negation. I'm not living with my brother and sister. You're not living with your brother and sister. He's not living with his brother and sister. She's not living with her brother and sister. They are not living with their brother and sister. And we're not living with our brother and sister. Question. Am I living with my brother and sister? Yes, you are. You are living with your brother and sister. No, you're not. You're not living with your brother and sister. Are you living with your brother and sister? Yes, I am. I'm living with my brother and sister. No, I'm not. I'm not living with my brother and sister. Is she living with her brother and sister? Yes, she is. She's living with her brother and sister. No, she's not. She's not living with her brother and sister. Are they living with the brother and sister? Yes, they are. They're living with the brother and sister. Pasado. I lived with my brother and sister. You lived with your brother and sister. She lived with her brother and sister. Negación. I didn't live with my brother and sister. You didn't live with your brother and sister. She didn't live with her brother and sister. Pregunta, did I live with my brother and sister? Yes, you did. You lived with your brother and sister. No, you didn't. You didn't live with your brother and sister. Did you live with your brother and sister? Yes, I did. I lived with my brother and sister. No, I didn't. I didn't live with my brother and sister. Did he live with his brother and sister? Yes, he did. He lived with his brother and sister. No, he didn't. He didn't live with his brother and sister. Continúo con todos los demás tiempos. Voy a vivir con mi hermano y mi hermana. I am going to live with my brother and sister. You're going to live with your brother and sister. He's going to live with his brother and sister. She's going to live with her brother and sister. They're going to live with their brother and sister. Negation. I'm not going to live with my brother and sister. You're not going to live with your brother and sister. He's not going to live with his brother and sister. She's not going to live with her brother and sister. Question. Is she going to live with her brother and sister? Yes, she is. She's going to live with her brother and sister. No, she isn't. She isn't going to live with her brother and sister. Futuro con will. I will live with my brother and sister. You will live with your brother and sister. Negation. I won't live with my brother and sister. You won't live with your brother and sister. She won't live with her brother and sister. Question. Will she live with her brother and sister? Answer. Yes, she will. She will live with her brother and sister. No, she won't. She won't live with her brother and sister. Recuerda, acá lo estoy abreviando, pero tú lo tienes que hacer con todas las personas, con todos los tiempos, en todas las formas. Ahora con el presente perfecto. I have lived with my brother and sister. You have lived with your brother and sister. She has lived with her brother and sister. They have lived with their brother and sister. We have lived with our brother and sister. Negation. I haven't lived with my brother and sister. You haven't lived with your brother and sister. She hasn't lived with her brother and sister, and so on and so forth. Pregunta en presente perfecto. Have you lived with your brother and sister? Yes, I have. I have lived with my brother and sister. No, I haven't. I haven't lived with my brother and sister. Have I lived with my brother and sister? Yes, you have. You have lived with your brother and sister. No, you haven't. You haven't lived with your brother and sister. Has she lived with her brother and sister? Yes, she has. She has lived with her brother and sister. No, she hasn't. She hasn't lived with her brother and sister. Y lo hago con todos los tiempos. Lo hago con el condicional. I will live with my brother and sister. You will live. Pregunta, would I live with my brother and sister? Yes, you would. No, you won't. No, you wouldn't. Y puedes ver que con una frase tan simple como esta, puedes practicar en inglés como no te imaginabas que podías hacerlo. Te recomiendo que lo hagas con diferentes frases todos los días. Haz este ejercicio, te vas a dar cuenta. En tan solo una semana, tu inglés va a mejorar increíblemente. Si este video te sirvió, recuerda compartirlo. Déjame tu comentario. Haz un ejemplo con alguna frase. Compártelo con personas que sepas que están aprendiendo, que esto me ayuda muchísimo para seguir haciendo videos. Y por favor, no se te olvide darle like. Thank you, people. Thank you very much. See you soon.